In Vermont, Burlington is rarely out of the news for very long. The Queen City is often in the spotlight over its politics, public safety controversies, new development, and its downtown vibrancy. So no shortage of questions for Miro Weinberger, the 52-year-old mayor who joins us this morning. Miro Weinberger, welcome back to NBC5 In Depth.
It's good to be with you, Stuart. It's been a while since I've been out here.
It has been a while. Thanks for coming in, and there's a lot to get to, so let's start with some of the news this week. The state auditor, Doug Hoffer, was out with a pretty critical report of the city's management of its waterfront TIF district. The headline, which we'll put on the screen, numerous errors in waterfront TIF district. City owes TIF district $1.2 million and state ed fund about $200,000. This was how Doug Hoffer put it to us.
There was so much money moving around, so many capital projects, so many departments involved that monies were allotted to one project but should have been in another. They couldn't find the right invoices to document expenses for one project, had too much going into another project and so forth. It's routine stuff. But once it starts, as I say, it tends to snowball. And it wasn't because of bad intent or incompetence. It's just that at some point they needed to make the commitment to get policies and procedures in place.
Mayor, do you take issue with that last part?
I don't, Stuart. And in fact, that's what we've been doing repeatedly over the last decade since I came into office. It's a long time ago now, but you may remember we had a major financial problem in 2012 when I came into office. 2 weeks before I was sworn in, there was an audit that came out that said we had all sorts of problems with our financial systems, 12 material weaknesses. We had $24 million in deficits that were owed to the general fund from these various projects. And we set about cleaning that up as priority number one back in 2012, and we succeeded with that. We got a clean audit a few years later. We went from the edge of junk bond status to having our AA credit rating back again, locking in millions of dollars of interest savings for taxpayers and ratepayers. This audit, though, Stuart, what people need to understand, goes all the way back to the beginning of that process.
It goes back to the 90s.
It goes back. Well, this audit goes back to 2010, and so.
This TIF, though, goes back to 96.
That's right.
I think one of the oldest in the states.
The oldest. The waterfront TIF district was the first in the state. This audit that Doug Hoffer's team just completed was for the years from 2010 to 2021. So 11-year period, and it included that period where our systems were very flawed, and we made some major multi-$100,000 mistakes in that period. There then were some more recent findings in another audit that we started taking further action to hire new senior accountants, to have new consultants in place, we actually now have, today we have a trustee that signs off on any TIF expenditure that we didn't have before. So we've made a lot of changes. I regret that these errors took place during the time I've been in office. The good news is that there's several pieces of good news. First of all, no money was lost here. The money was sort of in the wrong accounts, and we're fixing that. We're putting money back from the general fund to the waterfront TIF district. It may be that the auditor believes a couple $100,000 is owed to the state ed fund. That's really a different issue. That wasn't a result of city mistakes. It's a result of some challenges with the state software system and the way that interacts with the waterfront TIF district. We've been working for some time with the state tax department and the private contractor who runs that system. We're going to get that sorted out. And what I want Burlingtonians to know is that because of all the changes we've made to strengthen our finances, we have the capacity. We plan for unexpected events like this. We have millions of dollars sitting in reserves so that if something unexpected comes up, we can make a change without impact on operations, without triggering a need for a tax increase. This isn't going to slow down the growth on our waterfront or in the downtown. It's unfortunate this happened. I regret it. We're fixing it, and it's not going to happen again.
Town meeting day is around the corner. The city's going to have a whole lot on its ballot before voters. And you had a news conference this week about requiring renewable energy in new construction, getting closer to net zero. That's one of, you have 6 or 7 different ballot questions before voters, including non-citizen voting, after the Supreme Court cleared the way for that, the legality of that in the Montpelier case. What else?
Well, so the one you mentioned that is the second time that's going to voters. It passed the first time. This idea that the city would have the ability to regulate heating systems to try to not prohibit fossil fuels, but to properly to put a price on the cost of carbon pollution. And this is going back to voters. They get a chance to weigh in on this. If this were to pass, I think it's going to be an important step forward towards our climate goals. What it basically says, and for new construction and for large buildings, not for existing single-family homes, but for large buildings over 50,000 square feet, you have a choice. You can either build a building that doesn't have any fossil fuel infrastructure in it, and you can do that, by the way, today because of all the changes in the technology and because of the massive incentives that the Burlington Electric Department is offering and that the federal government is now offering. What we showed at the press conference is that in many cases, the all-electric, all-renewable options are cost competitive or even less expensive than the conventional fossil fuel system. So we want people, this fee, if it passes, will require people, when a builder's coming in and wants to build something new, they're going to want to look at this and really understand the issue, because they are going to have to pay a fee if they choose to put fossil fuel infrastructure in there. It's a science-based fee based on the amount of pollution that's going to be caused. And I think this is going to be a very positive step and allow Burlington to continue its leadership towards becoming a net zero city. There are a number of issues, and I think this is an important thing for people to understand. Is part of the reason we have so many this year is the City Council has put a number of items on the ballot through the kind of typical process that we see every town meeting day in Burlington, where it goes through the council, goes through a charter change committee, the council votes on it, I sign off on it. That's, I think, 5 of the 7 have gone through that process. The other 2 have come through a petition process where by our charter, the City Council and the Mayor have no role with that. And these 2, I do believe, are very problematic, and I hope voters know that when they are going to the polls. One would create what is being called this community control board for the police. The other is called Prop 0, that essentially takes, that would move us towards a kind of direct democracy model, sort of like you have in California, where potentially every issue can just be sent to voters every town meeting day, and kind of, I think, will really erode our representative government that we have today. So happy to talk more about both of those. They're important issues.
Well, I want to ask you about public safety.
Yeah.
You are still at odds with many progressives on the council who insist that the push to try to rebuild the police department and aggressively recruit more officers really focuses on the wrong problem. Let's listen. I
still think that the mayor is reaching for policing as a solution to what are really public health crises when it comes to addressing houselessness and some of the conditions that we've seen around substance use as well. The problem, I think his point is, it's not that we are down half of the police force, it's all of the other social ills. What do you say?
Stuart, I mean, here's the thing. Burlington, for years to this day, even more so right now than ever before, is doing everything we can on the public health side. I mean, we've gone from having 1 social worker working for the police department. We now have 6. In the next few days here, we're going to open up this new public health approach to homelessness, where we are building this emergency shelter on Elmwood Avenue. Do we
have a date for that?
We are about to announce a date.
Okay.
I was on the site today. We are very close to opening it. The final touches are being put on that.
Okay.
That is really trying to approach homelessness in a new way, where we offer a place for people to sleep, have some independence, and get access to a huge amount of resources. I think, for years, the City of Burlington has done more than, and our police department, frankly, has done more than just about any city and police department in the country to try to address our drug crisis with a harm reduction approach and to really put it in the front, getting people into medically assisted treatment. So what I do find frustrating about that comment is we are doing all of that. I also believe we need a police department. We need officers. Officers play a fundamental role in providing the public safety that that Burlingtonians have long enjoyed and I think have a right to expect. And I need the council to be a partner in that. And it does concern me when we see comments like that that suggest there is not support for rebuilding the department and valuing police officers the way we need to if we're going to get back to where we were prior to the pandemic.
Will you ask the council to make John Murad the permanent chief? He's going on, what, 3 years as the acting chief? Isn't it time?
Well, I thought it was time a year ago when I brought him forward and that deadlocked. I will bring him back again soon. We have numerous other issues that we're also pushing the council to take action on with public safety right now, and in some ways I'm more focused on those issues. We're going to be asking the council to join me in opposing this community control board, which I think is, if it were to pass on town meeting day, would undermine our efforts to rebuild the police department. I'm going to ask the council's help in a new incentive effort to help us retain older officers so we can stay on track with our rebuilding plan. We are going to I'm asking for the council, to the point of taking new approaches. I do think we should create a new senior assistant director level position at the police department that is a civilian, non-officer, to oversee all these alternative resources that we've created. So we're coming to the council with a lot of public safety actions in the coming days, as I announced a couple weeks ago, and Chief Murad is one of those.
Next, the mayor discusses what's driving a little boom in new construction across the city, from the Big Pit to new housing, and what he hopes will come from the legislature this winter. In a moment. Well, as you heard before the break, Mayor Weinberger is weighing a lot of public safety issues, including when to ask the city council to vote on making John Murad the permanent police chief. New councilors could change the dynamic at City Hall as soon as this spring. Here's more of our conversation. Mayor, the downtown almost seems on a roll this week. You tweeted recently about seeing all these cranes at housing projects and how it had been a long time since that's been the case. City Place is now underway. The former cathedral adjacent to the transit station appears closer to getting redeveloped. There was 7 Days had a report this week about the Zampieri office building on the other side of the transit station, a big thing in the heart of Burlington that might be put on the market. What's going on?
Well, Stuart, I think one of the things, part of what you're seeing is that for a decade, it has been a real priority of my administration to create more housing. I came in office as a former housing developer, believing that we had lots of challenges with our local zoning laws that were really barriers to new housing being created. And we've been chipping away at that steadily for more than a decade now. That work is ongoing. There are 3 big further zoning changes that are at the Planning Commission on their way to the council. One of them is about to get to the council. So, but you put all that together, and I think it has become easier to build housing in Burlington. And yeah, that's why you see housing happening at the Pit. That's why you see right next to it the project that Doug Nutty is pursuing, where Senator Leahy is going to live in the downtown.
Is that where he's going to be?
Yeah.
And the former YMCA.
The former YMCA will be a hotel is being proposed, and there's also down on Champlain Street, out on Cambrian Rise. There's a lot going on right now. I'm very happy to see that, Stuart, because I fundamentally believe we have a supply problem with housing. It's a supply problem that has built up over decades, and the only way we're going to address the 0.5% vacancy rate we have now. The only way we're going to really make progress on our homelessness challenge is if we build a lot more housing. And so I'm very encouraged to see that. There
are many people in Montpelier who would agree with you that we have a statewide housing crisis, particularly in affordable housing. Yeah. And the governor, many legislators agree. The governor's out with his new budget, biggest ever. I'm wondering, you are also out with a wish list both on behalf of Burlington and the mayors of our state. What tops the list?
Well, housing's right at the top of the list. I would say it's housing, public safety, and dealing with our drug crisis and mental health crisis. To stay on housing for a moment, I am encouraged there. I think Montpelier, there is a sense that they need to do something on housing as well. And there's some bills that are being in the early stages that I think could do some good. The biggest thing Montpelier could do to help with the housing supply challenge that we just talked about is they could get rid of this very problematic double layer of regulation that is unique to Vermont, where a project in Burlington and South Burlington and Colchester and Montpelier, many municipalities around the state that have sophisticated, robust local zoning systems. They have a local development review board that looks at essentially all the issues that are looked at Act 250, but we make many projects go through both that local process and then go through the state process as well. We should just get rid of that for cities like Burlington, where we are already doing all that work at the local level. That would save every project, there's a study that was done a few years ago, it would save 7 months of time, which is a long time for the average project. It would save hundreds of thousands of dollars between fees and professional fees. And I think it's the single biggest barrier to new housing in places like Burlington and the kind of concentrated areas where people want to live and where I think there's consensus we want more growth. There's been talk of Act 250 changes for years. I really hope that this is the year the legislature can get something done. I was pleased to see the governor said the same thing in his State of the State. He said, "This is let's get this done this year." I really hope people are getting that message.
Should the state adopt a universal paid family and medical leave act and support a new tax to fund it?
I'll tell you what, Stuart, I think as a local official, I haven't been grappling with that issue at the statewide level. I'll tell you what we have done in Burlington. I think we're the first governmental entity in the state. We in the most recent round of collective bargaining, we now offer most of our employees paid family leave if they work for the city of Burlington. Not every collective bargaining unit got that, but most employees now have that. I'm proud we got that done. I think it is an important benefit for people to have.
But this would be universal for all workers everywhere.
Yeah. I really don't. I hope you know this about me, Stuart. I don't like just grandstanding and talking about things that I'm not an expert in. And since it hasn't been an issue before the city council, exactly. What I can tell you is we've made it a priority in Burlington. We got it done in Burlington.
Gun reform is another big one in Montpelier. A lot of Democrats, including the state senator from Burlington, Phil Baruth, pushing S4. You have also asked the legislature to at least let Burlington do what Burlington voters have already asked of the legislature, barring firearms in restaurants and bars, for example. S4 would prohibit possession of semi-automatic weapons by people under 21 years old, for example. There are some juvenile justice reforms. The governor this week said he has no stomach for any of it. Let's listen.
I think we've done a lot over the last few years. I think we need to make the system better, the NICS system in particular. I think we're going to need some congressional help on that. We need to educate people more about the red flag laws that exist and how they're utilized better and how that interacts with the NICS system. So I think we have a ways to go, but I'm not feeling as though we need to do anything with our gun laws at this point in time.
Now, there's a big difference between Heartland and the old north end of Burlington. Where does the governor have it wrong?
Well, let me start by saying, Stuart, I think the governor showed real bravery on this issue several years ago when he was really the first governor to support making legislative changes here in Vermont. I do think it is time to go further. you're right that there are differences between the communities, but it wasn't only in Burlington that we saw huge issues with gun violence and gunfire incidents in 2022. The amount of gun issues and gun problems was up statewide. I think one area where Vermont is really an outlier at this point is with safe storage, which was one of the provisions that Burlington voters overwhelmingly supported back in 2014. Every other state requires, as part of the responsibility of gun ownership, is that you ensure that your firearm is secure, is safely locked up. Right. And this is a real issue. In the last 17 crime guns that we've recovered, the Burlington Police Department have recovered at crime scenes or in investigations following up from them, that during this shooting spree we've seen over the last couple of years, of those 17 guns, 6 of them were stolen guns. They were, in some cases, left on the front seats of automobiles and stolen from there. That is not responsible gun ownership. Every other state in New England regulates that. We should too. I also do think I think we should make it state law. It's also not an academic thing. This other provision, like you mentioned, that Burlington voters supported back in 2014, making it illegal to bring a gun into a bar. Here too, of the last 50 gunfire incidents in Burlington, going back a couple years now, 25% of them were late night bar related guns. We would have had less of those if it was against the law for people to be carrying a gun as they went into these establishments. And this is not a wacky progressive idea to do this. The state of Alaska has this law. North Dakota, Wyoming, places where we have a culture of subsistence hunting, where there's a lot of respect for firearms and for recreational firearms, have found a way to have this law. I think we should too in Vermont.
Mayor Murrell Weinberger, thank you very much for being with us.
Appreciate being in here with you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.